Hello and welcome to the Design Rescue Show, where we take a behind the scenes look at the unique journeys of creative professionals. And we learn about the choices they've made that have shaped their career paths. Hello, everyone. Thank you again for joining us today. I am your host, David Block, and today it's my pleasure to welcome a seasoned creative director and design professor at Cal State Northridge with over 25 years of experience in design and retail industries, and Nick Longo.
Thank you for joining me. Thanks for having me, man.
Welcome. So this show is basically a behind the scenes tour of your career journey, your path, and how you got to where you are today. And so what I'd like to do is just jump all the way back. My very first question goes all the way back to the beginning. I'd love to hear how you, where your influence came from, where your first sort of drive to get into the graphic design industry. What was it that turned you on?
I gotta say, brands were obviously a big thing. Like anything you got into, if it was skateboarding or motocross or the toys you had, like I was gravitated to brands. Like I knew there was something cool about it. Like when you could spot out a logo of a brand of a toy from a mile away, it's doing its job, right? Like there was something so cool about that idea of what that meant, like what experience was going to come if that you got that toy, or if you got that skateboard or whatever it might have been, or that cool t-shirt, whatever it was. And I was always aware of that. It was always something that was like made sense to me. I think I have a very photographic mind. My dad always told me, like, you know, how do you remember these things? You've seen it once. And it's just one of those things where I think that was purely captured in my youth. And out of just all the things to get into, we'll talk about later, but toys was the one thing that really, I think, really kind of got me to understand, like, I could be creative with this thing. And then having toys that didn't have rules, right? Like Legos or Lincoln Logs or all these things that you could build and create on your own without instructions, without copying whatever someone else did. Those were those things that really told me that like creativity was in my blood for sure.
Awesome. That's great. Yeah. That's great. So you went to Cal State Northridge, and what was what program did you take?
Graphic design, 2D was what it was called at the time. Oh, and again, it was one of those things where I was at Pierce Community College prior to that with an undecided major. And when I saw what my buddy was doing, who was already going to CSUN, I was like, what is that? What is graphic design? I want to know everything about it. That's exactly what I've been waiting for. That's my career. I had nothing else was ever calling my name, you know, going like, this is what you got to get into. And at one point, architecture was the choice, only because I was kind of following out of my dad's footsteps a little bit. But this was the most, like, talk about light bulb moment in my life, to see that and know that there was a career, there was a name, and now I can say that's what I want to go to school with. So I was so lucky to have the general ed out of the way, and I can go right into the career last 2 years of school and just dive completely into art and graphic design.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great. So were there any projects you could talk about while you were at school that were sort of pivotal and kind of solidified exactly what you wanted to do?
None at all. I hate to say it. I mean, I wasn't the best student. I'll be honest. And I tell my students that all the time. It was more just getting to do stuff from my own creativity. My buddies and I have gone back and looked at our work, you know, when we graduated, and, you know, it's really bad, but, and I can't say, you know, that's such a great question. And I'll be really honest with you. Nothing really stood out. I had one brochure that I think I designed that I was really proud of, but between you and I and all your listeners, my nickname was Scrap, because I would wait till the very last minute and I would pull scraps from the last project and I'd shuffle them around and hope I can fool the teacher. So I wasn't that good. I really was not. I could not wait to get out there and just work. That couldn't come any faster.
Yeah, I hear you. I can totally relate. And so on that note, then when you got out of college, can you talk about your first professional project that you got involved with? A little bit about the challenges that you dealt with.
Yeah. I was really lucky at the time because it was all about put your feelers out there, apply to a bunch of jobs, got a job before I even graduated. I was working part-time at a magazine company here in Southern California, just production work and kind of like, getting to understand the ins and outs. And there wasn't really anything too crazy to learn there, but it was finally a job. But within months, I had found a job at a small little design agency here in the San Fernando Valley. And I worked with 3 business partners that owned the company. And my boss was the creative director. And Fred was like the most incredible mentor to have. I got to see how this guy not only juggled being a creative director, but being a business owner and being a business partner with 2 best friends from college, and how they grew their business and the ins and outs of that and everything. And it was just understanding speed and pace. And so it wasn't particularly like incredible work just yet, but what it was seeing that like, okay, school is completely on slow-mo compared to the real world, right?
Yeah.
This was much faster, and there was such a good pride of everything we were doing. That was what stood out for me the most. And again, it was more reassuring that I had found the right career, and for sure that worked for me.
Moving a little bit further on, you actually were VP of a couple of different places. So you were in your early career, you were the vice president of creative services at Applause.
Yes.
Then you moved over to Logistix to be the VP of creative.
Yes.
Right? And then after that, you went to Equity Marketing to be their VP of global creative and design.
Yes. And you should know that they all were mergers, acquisitions. And it was just me sitting there going like, tell me what office to show up at. It was back in the day of everybody either competitors buying each other out or mergers. So for me, it was this way to have 3 distinct places, 3 distinct kind of like areas of expertise, but riding that wave and being, talk about lessons learned, like going through that whole process again. It's not about you, it's right. You put yourself in these things where you're like, well, what about me? We're moving offices and I live here. And you're like, the companies will do what they need to do to survive and to move and to grow. And so riding that wave is how that became those 3 distinct actual locations and names. But if you look at it, it was all the same work, but all the building blocks to who I am today. 1,000%.
Well, that's amazing. Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. Mm-hmm. Now I would like to hear if you could talk about a project, for instance, while you were at Applause, or actually anywhere along the line. If you could talk about a couple of different projects that
got a few of them. Yeah. At Applause, we were they were a toy manufacturer, but our little division did toys and gifts that were considered either premium or specialty. And what that meant was premium meant like it was a free giveaway. You got it in a cereal box, or you got it at your Taco Bell kids meal toy. And some of the specialty stuff were like theme parks. So one of the first projects I got to get on was overseeing, I think it was like 500 SKUs that we were creating for the Islands of Adventure theme park for Universal Studios. Right. And talk about we built a team. We had about 9 of us, and we were just on a mission, and we had a deadline, and we were in Orlando back and forth and kind of showing the options, showing the concepts, and learning how to deal with a client and stay on budget and stay on time and yet still craft good creative. Right. That was the best launching point to understand how to get into more of a financial side of the design world, right? Like we could be the best designer in the world, but if you're not learning the process of the job you're working in and getting to understand all of those things that happen behind the scenes, that was just wild. So that would be the Applause one. At Logistix, we were the first team to basically give away a free watch with a gift with purchase. And what that was we came up with these watches that went in Kellogg cereal boxes. So I'm sure like when you're a kid and you see what's inside the box, right? You're like, this is like, I'm going to get this little wind up or whatever. We did a digital watch, and they were Barbie and Hot Wheels, and it was a Mattel collaboration. And that was the most challenging thing we've ever done, because what most people don't realize is that is a very cheap thing that gets thrown in there, but millions of them are made. And so we were doing something like 7 to 10 million units of that watch. And it had to come in at like 21 cents landed, meaning like that's what it had to cost for us to make. And then we sold it to Kellogg's as the agency, manufactured at a certain cost to make profit. So talk about slicing off like fractions of a penny and seeing it actually make a difference. And that's when, you as a creative are sitting at a table and being a part of big decisions. And I love that creative is now at the table. Whereas I think 20 to 30 years ago, it wasn't so much that way. It was more like, here's the work you need to do, bring it back. And then it was brought to a room and decided on, or whatever it might have been. But since we knew it so well, we knew if we had to cut back on a mechanism or something on the inside, we knew would that hurt performance? Would that hurt creative? Would that hurt our timing? But we found ways to do it. And then you're making sure your company is profitable. You're making sure you can provide the raises to the people on your team, or the promotion at the end of the year, or that, or the even the we did like bonuses based on our performance and everything. So when you see how your creative could actually affect the livelihood of your company and everything that we're doing, talk about a team effort, right? That was by far like the biggest learning lesson for me, because it wasn't just all about pretty pictures and creative anymore. It was about, can it work? Can it perform? And can you do it for an unbelievably low amount of money?
Right. Fantastic. All right. Now you mentioned Kellogg's. I'm actually interested in hearing about the successes you had with Kellogg's and Kraft.
Yes.
North America accounts with equity.
Yeah, we did. So with Kraft, we did all the little freebies that came in the Lunchables boxes. So when kids got that, they found a fun little toy or a little, game or something fun to play around with. And Kellogg's, it was all of their in-box toys as well. We had a division that was solely doing all of the kids' meal toys for Burger King. We worked with Macy's. We worked with Kohl's. We did anytime a company needed to do that gift with purchase or that free with purchase thing, we became like we were the company behind the company. We were the ones that, pitched the idea, worked with the licensor. So if it was like Mattel or DreamWorks or something like that, we were the ones going back and forth and making sure it met the equity of their brand and their characters and, all that quality assurance. And best job ever, for sure.
I'm curious if product design is part of that. I mean, you're talking about obviously marketing and things like that, but product design, coming up with new ways to create products that sell the concept.
Yeah, so we were all technically graphic designers that found how to learn. We worked one-on-one with our engineers, one-on-one with our logistics team. Then we were at factories overseas, understanding how that could be done. So we were almost self-taught product designers because most of us came from the graphic design world. So talk about a learning curve. But I think, and I'm sure you've seen this in a lot of people you've interviewed, or maybe even your professional work. Sometimes you bring a refreshing perspective to it when you're not going through the traditional routes of a particular job.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's fantastic that you got to kind of touch into a different discipline. Yeah, correct. That's why I asked that question, because coming from a graphic design background, I didn't think that meshed. But that's
I'm just thinking of print, and then they're like, no, this is 3D, and you're like, so now all of a sudden we're hiring. The beautiful thing is we had about a 40-member creative team. So when we needed a character developer or a sculptor, they were on staff. So we were just finding those ways to bridge what we knew and learn with them. And then vice versa too. Some of these people, who were more product or more, we had a seamstress she did all of when there was something that was an actual outfit or a uniform or something cool, like a lot of the Star Wars characters that had like, capes and different things on them. She got just as a lesson in graphic design and Photoshop and you name it. We were such a pool of like such cool skills that everybody kind of learned together. And I feel like that's like a dying breed in a lot of the companies and stuff that I see now when we do studio tours and everything. I'm like, you don't have those people here? Like, it's like, or they all work from home. It's like, it's missing that. It's missing that unity,
Yeah, I totally can relate to that. totally can relate to that. When I was just a side note, I was a senior designer at Experian, and we had an opportunity to design the wrap for the NASCAR vehicle that we sponsored, and that was I had never designed a wrap before, so it was something totally new. And yeah, I love those challenges. I really enjoyed getting design challenges like that.
Otherwise you're bored, you know.
Right,
it's like as long as you're not like ruining projects, you know. It's like, but that's the thing, you baby step into it, and there's always someone that's a good lead that can make sure no mistakes are being made, but everyone's learning. And I just, that's the one thing I miss about that collaborative kind of office space. It was great.
If you're enjoying this video, please take a moment to hit that like button, leave a comment below, and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss our future videos. Thank you. Absolutely. So now moving on a little bit more. So you became a professor at Cal State Northridge. I'm actually curious if you could tell me how you've integrated sort of the executive experience that you have into your curriculum.
That's funny because I'm sure they tell me I'm probably the most corny of the teachers as well. But yet I think it's a blend, right? It's like, I know exactly what they're expecting, what they want. They've got 1 year left. I have an advanced class that is like always the graduating seniors. And just now I'm just starting doing some introductory courses, but I love the idea of like knowing what's next for them and giving them a taste of it. You said too, like you set your office up or your classrooms as more of an office space. Not only do I do that, but I treat the class and the course and the projects they're doing as a real live kind of like business operation, and that we're all within like a design studio and we're working together. And I love that vibe has worked well for me. And I it's changing and it evolves, you know, every semester. You find things that work, you find things that don't, but I'm a stickler for making sure that they are on time with their deadlines and the things. They have checkpoints along the way. I know sometimes I've heard of other teachers doing these things where they'll drop what the project is and it'll say it's due in 2 months. And there's really no kind of like check-ins through there. And I think that's not how it is in real world, right? You're going to your creative director or whoever it might be with every kind of like, you know, checkpoint and making sure you're on track. And who would wait till the very end to see something to bring it into a client or something like that. So I try to make sure we're doing it that way. They have to present, they have to get up in front of the class, and they have to sell the work. I mean, that is, I spend more time on that sometimes than design because they mostly got that down by the time they're seniors. I want to give them that idea that if you're not that passionate, like committed creative at the table with others, you're just going to be pushed back into a cube and be a pixel pusher. But if you contribute with ideas and brainstorming and solutions, compromising, all of those things by working in groups and presenting your work, then I feel like that's the person that gets elevated. That's the person that sees some growth at their companies and their jobs. So it's really just finding those moments where that works in the classroom. And then like you said, and like I started at the beginning, but then I want to make sure they understand I'm human. You can come to me at any time. They can text me, call me, email me all through the weekend, all through the night, whatever it is, because I want them to know I'm a champion for them. And I love being that cheerleader and that person that's like, whatever you need, if you even need just those words of encouragement for 5 seconds, I take the kind of like instructor hat off and I'll just look them in the eye and be like, you got this. You totally got this. This is not a big thing. You'll look at this and say, it's a blip, you know, down the road.
Yeah. You know, it's really interesting that and going back a couple of moments when you were talking about the checklist.
Yeah.
We're right on the same page with that. I absolutely think that is, it's super important. It's what we did when I was in college. We actually made stamps for our work that had little check offs, right? So stamp it and we would take it around and get checked off. What I do with my students is I have the creative process broken down by on a checklist, and they have to get my signature as they go through brainstorming, mood boards, you know, sketching, refinements, blah, 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 blah. So by the end of my class, hopefully it's ingrained in who they are as a designer, and they just do it by rote.
That's a wonderful way. Even if they can just take that and like be the beacon that at a company. I know a lot of my students get these jobs and they're at like these odd companies that really don't have the creative team yet. There may be new companies. Hate to say it, they're run by inexperienced people sometimes. They can come in and be that person and say that I got a process. David showed me. I know how this is, right? And so what, arm them with these things. Give them those tools that they can go in there and be like, I have a solution. Who would not want to hire a person like that? You know?
Absolutely. Right.
Yeah.
For sure. So I'd love to know if you have a story or two from of your students' work, some experiences that your students have gone through and clients that they've worked with, nonprofits.
Wow. So like in particular in classroom or out in the real world?
Oh, well, in your classroom, I guess, or if it connects to the real world, however that looks.
I'd say in the classroom, there's been some of those really amazing moments where you see a student gain the confidence that they've been just waiting for. And that might be after they do a presentation. That might be another student seeing their work and going like, damn, like I got to up my game. That's amazing. And it might be that student that just needed to hear that, and I love those moments. Like, again, it's irreplaceable. You can't do that on Zoom. It's so just incredible when those moments happen. I love it when you give just a few little like Easter eggs to a student about how they might be at a hurdle, or they might be at a area where they don't know how to continue, or what the next step is. And you could just give them a few of those little Easter eggs and they get it immediately. And they can even look at you and be like, I got it. Let me take it from here. And that way you're just nudging them along just enough that they can get past that. And now they see the path ahead of them and they're on autopilot. Like, I love those little moments as well. I love also some of the projects we've been doing. I still always want to like reevaluate and make sure they're of the times. Like it's so, I see a lot of work out there that these projects are student work, and I don't want to give those kinds of projects out. I'm 100% dedicated to making sure their work does not look like student work, because it could easily do that even at the college level, right? Yeah. So when they take it and bring it to this whole other level, and then they bring in some motion, or they make this beautiful website or case study out of that project, and they get feedback from someone, or it lands them the job, and I get this text saying like, it was all the project from your class, man. That was the one. Like, that is the best feeling by far. It makes doing this like the most gratifying job in the world, right? How could you ask for anything more than that?
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I had a student that came back a couple of weeks ago and asked for advice. He graduated last year. And last year he had a patch design project for a fire department. In the time since, he's been approached by other fire departments, so he's starting a little business.
See,
so he came back for advice. And
what's your cut, Dave?
Really
like, I'm sure. What's your percentage?
What's my cut? Exactly. Fantastic.
I love that you mentioned the badge thing. We have this project that we call I just call it the badge project, but its background is helping a brand in need. So I find 3 companies that are going through either some bad press, some turmoil, whatever it might be, right? And maybe something that's a little bit on that, like they got to rebrand or do something to change the perception of their brand. Like Chipotle back when they had a little bit of an issue, or Samsung. I give them the 3 brands and they get to choose one of the brands. And what they have to do is, with badges, they have to come up with these corporate responsibility badges that are basically what are the 3 things the company is now focusing on to get out of this bad period. And they create these badges, and they are like these little medals of going like, hey, we're back, right? And the kids get it, and they think it's going to be the easiest project in the world, and it's so difficult because they're trying to bring in design plus typography plus some kind of a wholeness or a shape or a unity in this badge. And because badges are just like it's one of my favorite things to design. It's not a logo, right? It's not a layout, but it's kind of somewhere in this like infographic stage in between. Right. And that one has such good traction when the students are out there showing off their work and looking for jobs. I've heard time and time again that one has been a game changer for them. And I think they can get behind it so well in selling it. And when they're talking about it, because they can really talk about the feelings that this brand is going through, and that they are rescuing, no pun intended, them as well. So I love when I find those projects that work. They can really stand the test of time. It's just a perfect like core that we can change each semester based on any companies that are in need.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
What a great idea. Have you
Yeah,
ever
I'll give you the brief if you ever want to use it. Yeah.
Yeah, I would absolutely. You kidding me? I would love to get that. Have you ever actually produced any of the patches, or is it just the design aspect?
Oh, some of the students have actually done they sent it off and got some embroidery. The other thing that one of them did was a little enamel pen. They did enamel pens of it, and they gave them away at the student portfolio show at the end of the year, which I thought was awesome. But that's the beauty of like mock-ups and a lot of these things that you could do, right? Like there's that beautiful like embroidery mock-up that makes it look like it's completely, embroidered, or the laser cut rubber one that looks like those keychains. And so they get to what's beautiful is they get to do that almost kind of like for free particularly if they didn't have the budget to make them. But even just sending out for stickers, right? Why not? It's so cheap now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you know what? Moving on even further down the path of your journey, I actually spent a lot of time looking at your portfolio. Yeah. I have to tell you, what an awesome portfolio.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it, dude.
Portfolio is great. And I'm looking at, for instance, Frill.
Right?
Frill is one. We've got California Keto.
Mm-hmm.
You got a lot of food products. Simply Eggless.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, one of my favorite designs. Super clean. Really nice design. Really, very nice.
Oh, thanks, man. It's available at every Trader Joe's. Little plug for them.
and then you take kind of a leap and you go to Die Hard batteries.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. Could you talk about a couple of these projects and the challenges that you met and how you dealt with those?
Yeah, the food and beverage stuff I could package up kind of conveniently. After years of doing the toys and the stuff for either fast food, packaged goods that were technically not good for kids, and I'm a very health conscious. I'm vegan. I'm a foodie. I love everything about like cooking and how nutrition and everything can be so good for you. I'm getting to play now in this world of health and wellness with foods and brands that need branding. And so it has slowly through referral, through my work getting out there, through being really conscious of making sure my work is out there. LinkedIn, Behance, my portfolio, talks, whatever it might be. I love that. It's like, I feel like I'm kind of like making up for all that by doing a lot of this stuff in this like health and wellness world. So it is a blast to be able to do that and help a company that just has a product and might not even have a name, let alone the brand, right? So it's like helping them with the name and understanding how is it going to stand out amongst the competition. And then now we've learned how to get these brands into the big retailers, the Sprouts, the Whole Foods, Irwan, I'm sure you've heard of, is like the golden standard now. If you can get your food in there, you're done, you're set. It's like getting a sitcom as an actor. So it's like, we've learned how, like, what the buyers there want to see and what's gravitating clients and consumers to buy these things. So it's a fun playground to mess with because you only get like a half a second to get someone off the shelves and make them go and buy something. Like if you've never tried the thing before and there's no referral for it, packaging and design is the number one choice or reason why you will either buy that or not, right? Are you going to go and grab that from the shelf? So to me, it's like a contest. It's like a challenge to make sure you're doing that for the clients. And so that's where those build. I think someone might be in the market. They'll look around, see maybe something I've done. They'll find that my name's tagged to it, and we can talk and kind of introduce a process of maybe becoming new vendor or client to them. And then what's so cool about it is, like, the Die Hard thing was truly because of networking and keeping up with the people that I've worked with in my professional career. And one of my ex-bosses was left where we were all at, bounced around, had a few places, and then wound up as the chief marketing creative officer of Sears, overseeing Craftsman, Kenmore, Die Hard at the time. And they were trying to package Die Hard to sell off. That's when Sears was kind of like dwindling, but they had these equity brands that they wanted to sell off. And so he called me one day and he was like, can you put together like a little presentation? We're doing mood boards and whatever. And I was like, sure. You know, we quote this thing out, and next thing you know, him and his team kind of come back and they're like, you know, why don't you just rebrand it? We were going to go find an agency, but like, you got this, like you figured us out, you know, exactly what we need to be and whatever. And it turned into, you know, like a 6-month project to rebrand Die Hard and sell it off. And then it was sold to, Performance Auto Parts, I believe, and one of the big kind of auto parts companies bought it, and we put together this style guide that became the Bible for them, and they took it and have created, you know, hundreds of packaging based on our style guide and what we put together. So it's all about like just putting those feelers out there. I always say, like, it's like no one's gonna hire if they don't know what you do. Like, you know, you put your work out there, put the word out that you are available. You can work with these people and you can bring their ideas to life. And next thing you know, man, they might just come knocking. It's kind of wild.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And just another kind of one other product that I'm actually curious about you've got in your portfolio is Organic 9. That's another one. Is different. It's dog food, right? It's a dog treat.
Yeah, that's that was Organic Canine, I believe, right? Is that the one?
Organic Canine, right?
Is that the one? Yes. So someone came up with this idea, since power bars and protein bars were so popular because they were a kind of a mini meal on the go. People with dogs traveling, hiking, whatever. Why not put a dog bar in a wrapper? And again, it was like helping them come up with the name and helping them come up with the branding and everything else. And I love those ones, man, because those are curveballs, right? Like no one's seen that before. And most people, like I think at first sometimes I'd be a little bit scared of going like, ooh, can I do this, right? But then you think about when you see something on the shelves and it is that game changer project or product. In the back of my mind, I'm saying, oh, why didn't I get that? Like how didn't, so you have to say, like, it's like, of course, go after it. If it comes your way, take the chance, ask for forgiveness, not permission. Right.
Exactly. Very good.
It's like to have a no fear attitude, man. Like that's the number one thing.
Yeah. It's better to go too far than to not go there at all. Absolutely.
There you go.
For sure.
I think Michael Scott said that, or someone. Yeah. You miss, what is it? You miss all the shots you don't take or whatever.
Well, guess what, Nick? We have actually, I know the time flew right by. We made it right to the end of the conversation. I have one more question for you, though. Man. On the topic of advice, what sort of advice or pearls of wisdom could you offer for new designers that might want to make their mark in the design industry?
Okay. So we got to shatter one thing. Never, ever, ever use the imposter syndrome thing ever in your career from this day forward. Just erase these self-doubts and these things. Okay. We are creatives first. We are creating work that's being put out there and obviously judged, right? It is your work being judged. It is not you. You can always do better with your work. So it's almost like just eliminate that from your vocabulary, from your worries in the past. We all go through it. The top people in our career still have not figured it out. So what does that tell you, right? I know too, my favorite line I heard was, if you're not nervous hitting send, print, post, or publish, you're doing it all wrong. You should be a little nervous. You should be pushing the envelope with everything you do. So keep that in mind. And my last thing would be, in the job search and in the world of transitioning from the student to the professional, be undeniable. Do not play small. When I saw that line the other day, I was like, don't play small. And it didn't even say play big. It just said, don't play small. And I was like, that tells me everything, right? Be the person that the team, the company, your boss, maybe your own business, whatever it might be, your client cannot live without. And you will find that will thrust you forward in your career. You will always have the ups and downs, but if the full trajectory is always in an upward moment, even with a few dips, you can't go wrong. But just think of who you would hire if you got to have the choice and the decision down the road, and just be that person.
Excellent. That's fantastic advice. Thank you
Cool.
so much. And absolutely, I appreciate your time, and thank you for being a part of my show. Thank you for being here.
I love what you're doing. I got a chance to look at a lot of your stuff and see what you're doing, and I'm like, some people come up to me like, how do you do it all? And I'm like, what are you talking about? You're the guy, dude. Like, how do you do it? I have no idea.